So Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim here, squirrel hunter with something different in my hands. Now, I have this in my hands because we're wondering about this process of DNA replication. And I heard that DNA is what makes you who you are. And so if I'm going to make another Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, a perfect replica of all this, then I'm going to need some help. Probably some scientist that uses this sort of thing. Now, my first instinct is that this looks like the sort of shot I got when I hit myself in the leg with a crossbow bolt, and the vet had to use some horse tranquilizer on me. Bam, right in the leg. But I'm thinking that this is also that sort of thing that them geneticists use. Because if we're going to make a Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, another one, ain't no lady can help Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim make another Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim. It's going to take science. So we're going to look at what it takes to make a DNA replica of Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim. Okay, so we're going to be doing this DNA replication, and this thing right here is a model of that DNA. Stands for something, but I think it might be like do not apply. I get that a lot for different jobs. But anyway, this DNA molecule, if we're going to replicate it, we're going to have to, book says, do something like separate it at the center. And then we start working our way up with the help of these things called enzymes. And so if we were to replicate a Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, we'd have to start at where there's a replication fork. And there is a natural one right down here. And so when we replicate Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, the first helper, the first, I guess you'd call it, enzyme would be, its job would be to replicate the feet. These feet, no one knows where they've been. I don't even have to time them a little bit out of it. But you'd have to get these, the knurls, the bumps, the bruises, the calluses, even that weird purple stuff that's between my third and fourth. You'd have to get all that, because without Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim's feet, he wouldn't be able to run from bears. Like right there. Wouldn't be able to run from them. So Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim's feet, the first helper's job is to make them feet work. Next thing, if you're going to be replicating Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, is you got to move up from the feet to the gut. Gut's really important if you're Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, because it's what makes all the decisions. You use the gut, you say, who you voting for president? What's my gut telling me? And if I could get my ear to my gut, I'd be able to listen a lot better. But I can usually hear it. Like, I know it's telling me pork rinds. I'm more likely to find Triscuits in Niedermeyer's room, but I want pork rinds. And so the gut, it's what leads me where I want to go. I want to go over here. Do I want to go over here? Do I want to go down there? I want to tie my shoes. Can't reach my feet. That's all because of that. Next thing. Third thing. We're going to replicate Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim. Moving up from the feet. That was helper 1, enzyme 1. Second one, gut. Enzyme 2, third one. Right there. You might think I'm pointing at rib cage. No, that's heart. That's all heart. Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim is heart. When people say, who do you think of when you think heart? People don't even let the word heart come out. It's just Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim, because I care so much for people. I said, your house, you need help. Come stay at my house. And if I don't have room at my house, like in my little lean-to, the spot off the side, you know what I do? Is I just bulldoze the forest next to me. Because I care. I'm all heart. If somebody says, hey, I need some wood, I clear cut. Clear cut everything. Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim cares about everything except the environment. That's Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim. All heart. Number 4, continuing to work our way up from the beloved heart into the neural, that's a good word for me, center, the brain. And if you were to go in through my ear, I did one time. I had the Q-tip a little too far in there. I mean, I pulled it out the other ear. And so if you went in there, you'd see that right there, the proverbial squirrel on the wheel. And granted, it doesn't always jog, and sometimes I wonder if it only has 3 legs. But that squirrel on that wheel, he is running and he is making me look and perceive things. You wouldn't believe some of the brilliant thoughts that I came up with. Ejector seats on helicopters. This is some brilliance, I'm telling you. Screens on submarines. Brilliance. Squirrel on the wheel. You need to replicate that. After 1, 2, 3, 4 enzymes. We're on number 5, and the 5th one is probably the most important. It's the one that seals the deal, closes all the gaps, holds Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim together, is the hair. Now, this hair isn't what it once used to be. It is running from my forehead like a caribou from a hungry Arctic wolf. I know, I've been running from hungry Arctic wolves too. I just limbed the caribou so he went slower than me and I was fine. But the hair, this is from where he derives his power. Me, Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim. I'm like Rapunzel. People, in fact, see me on the street and they say, Rapunzel. And I say, what? Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's not me. I'm Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim. So the hair, critical importance. It's what makes the appearance of Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim so captivating. So I was thinking about it, and though the prospect of having another Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim is captivating, to say the least, I don't know that even I can handle another one of me. Second problem, probably the bigger problem in this context, is that it's not an ideal analogy, because when we have DNA replication, apparently, I was looking at a book, I know it's rare, usually looking at magazines of the sort. USA Today's a little tough for me sometimes. So when DNA replication happens, it doesn't happen going up just one direction. On one strand, it goes opposite the way the fork's going. That's called the lagging strand. And the leading strand, hey, it follows the fork. No problem there. So I don't know that my analogy is as good as it could be. Though I do like the idea of the Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim clone. So we're going to see if we can't come up with a better analogy for how protein production works. So that's what we're going to see if we can do. I got it. Because it's a subject near and dear to my heart. So I'm a bit of a fly tire. An entomologist or entomologist appreciator. I like to catch fish with flies. That's what it amounts to. And so I got my fly fishing book right here. This one, love it. Loved it so much it doesn't even have a cover anymore. And I'm thinking that the act of making a fly is very like the act of making a protein. So I'd like to say that all the information for making the fly is right here. Squirrel on the wheel. It's not. Squirrels don't know how to make flies. They know how to eat nuts. I know. Squirrel hunter. No, I have all the information in this book. So in this way, the book is like the DNA. It has all the information on how to make all the flies. But at any given time, I don't want to take this book out into the field with me where I'm not using my wading staff and I'm tripping around and falling down and dumping it in the river. That's not a good plan. Then you lose it. Then you lose all the DNA. And if you lose all the DNA, no more Jim, Joe, Bob, Billy, Jim. And let me tell you, there'd be like a national holiday. It'd be tears from everywhere. So what we want to do is, if we're going out in the field, we want to make a fly, or I'm going somewhere and I want to make a fly, you pick out the exact fly you want to make and you turn to that page. And then you're going to go ahead and copy it down. So here's my page on fly time. This is the one I'm going to make right there. Beautiful salmon fly. Not that much unlike a woolly bugger or a parachute Adams, but we don't want to rip this page out because then the book would be bereft. Oh my goodness, there's an SAT word. So it'd be without this. It'd be lonely. So what you do is you get your own little piece of paper right here, and you make a small little copy. jotting down the key features. So I got my little fly and I'm drawing it in here like this. And I got my hook. And I'm making little notes to myself like feather here. And like back hair here. So I'm making these little notes to myself. Now I might change and abbreviate some things as I'm jotting it down. I might write P. Adams like. So it becomes slightly different than the DNA, but basically it captures what the DNA, what the manual says in order to make the fly. What I have just made, according to the Fine IB textbook, is what's called messenger RNA, mRNA. And that process called transcription. So I have transcribed the book. Here's my mRNA. Again, the message, how I'm going to build this fly, which is going to let me kill them salmon, just knock them dead, although I'm not supposed to be using words like kill or behead or decapitate. I think it's just catch and release is what they keep telling me. Anyway, so you got this thing. You put it down. You take the mRNA and you put it on what's called the small ribosomal subunit. It holds it for you in place. Now we're going to end up translating that with the help of the large ribosomal subunit and the tRNA, which my hand, which has been used for a good many amazing things, should have been one of the parts that was replicated. It's going to act as a tRNA and it's going to bring in the first amino acid. And so that first amino acid gets put and connected with the help of the tRNA to the large ribosomal subunit. And so this whole process, this whole thing, what we just did right there, called initiation. Next step is elongation. For elongation, what we're going to do is we want to extend this polypeptide chain. Because right now it's a single peptide. And based on my extensive knowledge of Latin, poly is not one. It's also not a lot of other things, but I don't know much more than that. So we need to extend this. So the next tRNA brings in the next component. I know you're thinking to yourself, Jim Joe by Billy Jim, I don't remember there being popsicle sticks on my flies, but you just got to trust. You got to trust. That's what it comes to. We're talking about Jim Joe by Billy Jim, the man who we want to replicate 1,000,000 times. And so we start attaching pieces. We have begun to elongate the polypeptide chain. And so we just continue along this process, elongating it by attaching components. Now you never know when something's going to fly off. That's why we are wearing these fine goggles. So we continue to build our fine salmon fly right here. So we've continued the elongation process. When we finally get close to done, what you'll see is termination. So we now have our completed fly. It has included on it these various components and ones that some more subtle details. I have some back hair from my neighbor Doris. Wonderful quality, sticks up. Also plucked a couple feathers from a local cockatoo. The owner wasn't that happy. But anyway, we have this completed fly. And so when the protein, the polypeptide chain is complete, this whole process needs to get terminated. So what happens is a completely different release factor. Notice I've been bringing things in with my left, so we're going to go ahead and say that it's my right. This release factor comes in to the ribosome and forces the whole thing to get released. Now it was bonded, so it takes a little bit of effort. So when we rip this off, that's like the polypeptide chain being released. It's called dissociate. And so then our ribosome floats away, our mRNA floats away, and our polypeptide chain gets folded just a tiny bit more, so it's ready to catch some Chinook, and if the authorities aren't looking, fill my cooler so I have a terrific dinner later that night. Jim Joe Bob Billy Jim telling you all about protein synthesis. That's an analogy.